Now that we've got things working, let's write an integration test to catch any regressions. That was all part of signing up, so let's go to the sign up test. User sign up test. Where is that? It's right here. That's right, so we commented these out. We're going to uncomment these. In fact, we can do that now, can't we? Should probably pass. Oh, there's still something not working. Well, let's go through the steps and see if we can't get that to be green. So get the sign up path, assert that difference. So after this post, well, let's see, we want to change this. We don't want to redirect now. And the reason is because we want to check that the user is not activated. So let's go over here. This is the user's controller, so let's do this. I'll show you how that works. So we're just going to do a regular post here. And one of the things that should happen here is an email should be delivered. And so the way to do that is to check this array that gets set during a test. So it's called action mailer base. .deliveries. So let's just calculate its size. It should just be 1. And in fact, this thing gets persisted from one test to the next, so we need to reset it every time. The way to do that is like this. You can clear it. Like that with a clear method. So let's do this. This should be green. Great. And now I want to check to see that the user created here is not activated. So I want something like this. The question, though, is how do I get this user out? And you might know this if you've solved the exercises. There was an exercise that showed you how to do this, but this is the first time in the main tutorial that we've talked about this. So there's a cool method called assigns. And it takes in a symbol, and it looks for an instance variable in the corresponding application. So inside the test, it's running the application. At this moment, we've just posted to the user's path, so we're in the create action. That's why we needed to change it from post via redirect to post, so that it will stay here in this create action. So because there's an instance variable here called @user, assigns of user will pull that value out and assign it to this local variable. So let's check that out. Excellent. So now let's take a look at some of the steps. I'm just going to put in some comments here. These are the kinds of things that people might do. You can try to log in before activating. So what happens if someone tries to log in as that user? What should this do? Well, it should not log the user in. We could also check the redirect here, but it's probably not that important. This is the most important thing, which is that trying to log in doesn't work. So what if a user uses the wrong activation token, something that's not valid? So let's get that URL. This is the edit account activation path. Here we're using the path version. We use URL over here. So here we used the full URL, edit account activation URL. And that's necessary because this is just in someone's email client, right? So, but ordinarily I would use a path in a test like this. It doesn't really matter, but that's why I'm doing this. My convention. So let's just put in an invalid token. And in this case, the user should still not be logged in, so we can just copy this here. All right, something else that can go wrong is that the user might log in with a valid token, but with the wrong email address. Let's try that. So this could be the user's token here. but the email could be something that's wrong. So let's just do something that's definitely wrong. It's not even a valid email address. That should also not be logged in. And that's the last of the cases that don't work. So the final one, let's just do this, should be with the right email address. And so at this point, the user should be activated. I've just introduced a subtle bug. See if you can detect it. And then I want to follow the redirect. That's what happens after we get out of this create action. And now it should redirect to the show page, and the user should be logged in. So we can uncomment this now. Save it, and I predict will be red. See if you can figure out why. Let's look at the error message here. Oh, I thought I was so clever because I knew why we were going to be red, but in fact, I just made a typo. So there were at least two reasons. This should not be account activation. This should be activation token. And same thing here. Okay, those are fixed. I predict we will still be red, though. Okay, so before we had an error. Now it's a failure. So the syntax is all fine, but what's happening here is that line 40 is failing. That's this here. Assert user.activated. So why did this not happen? If we go to the account activations controller, where's that? Here it is. It's right here, right? User.update attribute. Why did that not work? And the answer is because this user here is the user that's in memory. But this user gets activated in the database. So what we have to do is reload it. We saw this in the last lesson too, this idea that you have to reload. But it's good to practice that. This is something that comes up pretty often. Great. So now we're green. Let's run the whole test suite. Oops. Here. All right, that's a great test of all of that functionality we just wrote. Now that we have a good test, there's little refactoring I want to do. I don't like having this in the edit action if I can avoid it. I feel like, especially when there are two of them right here, but even if there were only one, I would want to put this on the user model and do something like this. And then put these in the user model like this. Put this here. And we can do this, paste this in, tab it back. And now at this point we could do this. This will work. Let's just do this here. Save this, save this. Oh, this is trying to run the account activations controller test, which doesn't have anything in it. It's just empty, right? It's just this. So we should probably update the guard file. Let's do that. Again, you will not have to do this because I will have changed it up for you. And this should run the user sign up test, right? So let's do that. All right, so that's passing now. Let's go back to the user model. Now that we have it working, we can change that self to just nothing. We can get rid of the self, and we can get rid of it here too. You can go either way on this. Some people prefer to keep the self explicit. I prefer generally to get rid of it if I can. Great. And now there's one other thing I want to do. Let's go back to the user's controller. This is only one line here, but I like the idea of attaching this to the user model. This is especially nice if there's more than one operation, but even when there's only one, it's a nice little abstraction layer. So let's save that. It'll go red because this doesn't exist yet. paste this in. Now I'm going to save this. This is the kind of thing that could really happen. It's so easy to do this. So that passed, but if we go back here, just run the whole thing. Ah, there's an error. So what happened? That's user mailer line 11, account activation, and it's in the user sign-up test. So let's look here, line 22, 23. That's here. And you can see that it says undefined method email for nil class. So what's nil in here? Ah, well this is it right here. The @user is not defined. @user is defined here in the user's controller. But there's no reason to send it as an argument to send activation email because this is the user, so we can just use self. So this is this. The same thing would happen, by the way, if we did this. If we left this accidentally. That'll give us an error. So these little mistakes are so easy to make, and this is one of the many reasons why it's important to have a good test suite. But because we do have a good test suite, we can make these little refactorings with confidence. So even if we forget something like changing @user to self, our test suite will catch it. All right, at this point, our account activation is working. We haven't actually seen it work on the live web, and we're going to defer that until after we're done with the password reset. But this is a great start. The only thing that's left is sending email in a production environment that actually goes to someone's actual email address rather than ending up in the server log. Since this is such a big milestone, let's make a quick commit. We can also push up the topic branch to make sure we don't lose any of this work we've done. We have a remote backup.